in thee.
Good morning, my fellow brethren, and welcome to another Motivating Monday session. Today, we are diving into the inspiring story of Stephen, the first Christian martyr whose life and death in Acts chapter 6 and 7 challenges us to live boldly for Christ. Stephen was a man full of faith, wisdom, and the Holy Spirit, and he was chosen to serve the early church during a time of rapid growth and growing opposition. His story is a powerful reminder of what it means to speak the truth courageously, even when it can cost everything. God himself encouraged such boldness in Acts chapter 18, verses 9 to 10, when Jesus told Paul, "Be not afraid, but speak, and hold not thy peace, for I am with thee." Let's explore Stephen's life through three defining moments. Firstly, his selection for service. Secondly, his seizure for speaking, and thirdly, his sacrifice in stoning. Along the way, we will uncover lessons to strengthen our faith today. Firstly, his selection for service. In Acts chapter 6, verses 3 to 5, we meet Stephen at a critical moment in the early church. The apostles were overwhelmed, trying to preach the gospel while also trying to meet the physical needs of the church, like caring for widows. So they called 7 men of good report to serve as deacons, and Stephen was among them. The Bible describes Stephen as a man with an honest reputation, full of wisdom, faith, and the Holy Spirit. That's certainly a very commendable description. Stephen wasn't just one of the 7. He stood out, especially noted for his faith and life filled with the Holy Spirit. We can see that he had a burning desire to serve the church, not just in grand ways, but in the humble tasks as well, like distributing food to those in need, as well as serving tables. Think about that for a moment. Stephen's heart for service wasn't about seeking attention, but it was about meeting needs and glorifying God in the meantime. His example challenges us to ask, where is God calling us to serve, and which areas of service can we be most useful to God? So, let's commit to serving the church and to God faithfully, trusting God to work through us, whether in big or small ways, in where we serve the church in the areas of service. Are we ready to step up, like Stephen, with a heart that is full of faith? Next, Stephen's seizure for speaking. We see that Stephen's faith didn't just stop at service, but it also flowed into the area of bold proclamation for the gospel. Acts chapter 6, verse 8 to 15 tells us that he performed great wonders and miracles, given his empowering by the Holy Spirit. He went to synagogues, reasoning with the Jews about Jesus with such great wisdom that no one could argue against him. But we see that the truth stirred opposition. When some couldn't counter Stephen's arguments, they resorted to lies, falsely accusing him of blasphemy to discredit him. They dragged him before the Sanhedrin, and there was a hostile crowd ready to condemn him. Yet, even in that moment, Acts chapter 6, verse 15 tells us that Stephen's face shone like an angel, that he had the face of an angel. And how I understand it to be is that Stephen, in spite of this opposition, that he was calm, that he remained radiant, and that he also remained unshaken in spite of this violent opposition. Stephen didn't shrink back, but preached boldly a sermon, tracing God's work through history and comparing the Jews' rejection of Jesus to Israel's rejection of Moses and God in the time of the Exodus. That is the kind of courage that is convicting. Stephen spoke the truth, knowing that it might cost him his life. Today, while we may not face a similar degree of opposition like Stephen, we can still face pressures, maybe at work, at school, or even online, for sharing about our faith. And many of us sometimes do face the pressure to remain silent for our faith. However, Stephen's example calls us to speak boldly for the truth and to stand up for the truth, even when it may seem unpopular or even risky to do so. So let's ask and reflect on ourselves. Are we willing to stand up for Christ, even when it means standing alone? Lastly, Stephen's sacrifice in stoning. Stephen's boldness led him to his ultimate sacrifice when he died when he was stoned by the Jews. In Acts chapter 7, verse 54 to 60, we see that Stephen's sermon cut the Jews to their hearts. But instead of repenting, they became enraged and decided to stone him. As Stephen was stoned, Stephen didn't curse his attackers, but instead he prayed for them. He prayed, "Lord, lay not this sin to their charge," echoing the forgiveness of Jesus that he had on the cross for the Jews. Even in his final moments, Stephen saw a vision of God's glory with Jesus standing at the right hand of God. This is a striking detail. Usually, the Bible describes Jesus as being seated on the right hand of God. But here, we can see that Jesus is standing as if out of concern that one of his own is paying the price for telling the truth with his life. Stephen's death, the first recorded martyrdom, signaled the start of a wave of persecution led by Saul, which scattered the church, as recorded in Acts chapter 8, verse 1. Stephen's sacrifice teaches us to trust in God throughout our trials, and also showing grace to those who may oppose us. We can see that Stephen's death wasn't the end, but we can see that his legacy inspired the church to continually spread the gospel as the church grew out of Jerusalem. So, what can we learn from Stephen's life and death? We can draw 3 lessons for today's Motivating Monday. Firstly, is to have the courage to speak the truth. As Paul writes in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 2, we are called to preach the word in its season and out of season. So even when times are difficult, even when it is unpopular to do so, we still have to preach the word. And we can see that Stephen didn't back down in the face of severe opposition in speaking the truth. Next, let us also consider the legacy that we will leave behind. We can see that Stephen's service was so impactful that his loss was deeply mourned by the early church. We read in Acts chapter 8, verse 2, that the Christians buried him with great lamentations. Let's serve the church and serve God so faithfully in a way that our work outlives us by advancing God's kingdom on earth. And lastly, let us also take comfort in Jesus. We can see that Stephen's vision of Jesus standing wasn't just recorded for him, but it's also recorded for us. It was recorded for our benefit. And I believe that this recording of the vision of Jesus standing shows that Jesus deeply cares for us when we face trials. Whenever we are persecuted for our faith or facing everyday struggles, Jesus is always with us, as he promised in Matthew chapter 28, verse 20, which reads, "For I am with you always, even unto the end of the age." We can see that Stephen's life challenges us to serve humbly, to speak boldly, and also to stand firmly for our faith, no matter the cost. So let's reflect today. Are we living a way that honors God? Are we trusting in God to be with us, even in our darkest moments when we are standing for the truth? Let's strive to follow the example of Stephen. I hope this message has been encouraging for you, and I wish you a good day ahead. Thank you. Holy and holy.